Well, it is great to be here. I always love to get to know the room, and so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by honoring someone. If you've been married for more than 25 years in a row, would you stand and remain standing? More than 25 years. All right, look around the room. Stay standing. That was a slow stand. Are you still trying to do math? What's going on right there? Okay, stay standing if you've been married more than 30 years. More than 35, 40, 45. You've been married more than 50 years. Stay standing. The rest of you may be seated. All right. All right. How long have y'all been married? 52? 55? Oh, how long? 57 years. Can anybody beat 57 years? All right, what's the secret to 57 years of marriage? Did you all hear that over there? Don't die. That's what he said, don't die. Hey, you've had that answer back there in your pocket for years, haven't you? I can tell. You've been waiting for just the right moment. Listen, I am speaking out of this book tonight, Fun Loving You, Enjoying Your Marriage in the Midst of the Grind. It is my gift to you for 57 years of marriage. So, hey, stop by the book table. I think it's over there. I'll be there afterwards. I'd love to meet you. I met a couple in Boulder, Colorado a few years ago, 62 years of marriage. And I said, what's it take to have a marriage? Go 62 years. And he yelled up just like you, but he said, we go on 2 dates a week. I go on Tuesday, she goes on Thursday. So that's your next answer when you find yourself in this situation, my friend. Now watch this. You've been married less than 25. Would you stand less than 25? And you will notice that no one applauds for you. You've done nothing. You've accomplished nothing. No, anyway. Stay standing if you've been married less than 20, 15, 10, 5, 3, 2. You've been married less than a year. Stay standing. The rest of you may be seated. All right. Okay. Signs of a healthy church. Less than 6 months. Look at them around the room. All right, less than 3 months. Ooh, look at he's checking out the competition. Hey. How long have y'all been married? 3 months? 2 months? 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Can anybody beat 6 weeks? 6 weeks, you got it. All right. I love it. 6 weeks to 57 years. I'm giving you a book I wrote with Dr. Gary Smalley years ago called From Anger to Intimacy. You won't need it till next month. I just want you to have it. All right. So if you would stop by the book table, I'd love to meet you and give you a copy of that book as well. Tonight I want to talk to you about enjoying life together. My passion in life is helping couples enjoy life together. And I've been walking side by side with this woman for the past 26 years. And this is our 25th wedding anniversary picture. How many of you remember Olin Mills? Raise your hand if you remember Olin Mills. Okay, put your hands on. I'll watch it. How many of you have never heard Olin Mills in your life? Would you raise your hand? Okay, let me explain to the young people. It's where all of us old people got our pictures taken in the 80s. We went as a family. We stood before the same blue backdrop, like mud shots. They were terrible pictures. We have any photographers in the room? Photographers nowadays, very excited people. Like, they got a lot of energy. And this photographer, we show up to this park. And she says, okay, Amy, you stand there. Ted, I want you to go back there 30 feet. I want you to sprint up. I want you to grab her. I want you to pick her up, spin her around, and set her back down. I said, should we stretch first? I didn't know what I was coming to. I'm not prepared for this. But I was game. I gave it everything I had, and I'm not an athlete. I lack several things athletes need: skill, balance, strength, coordination. But I gave it 110%. I grabbed her, and at about the 180 mark, I lost my balance. And for our 25th wedding anniversary picture, I body slammed my wife to the ground with a force. But the reason I love this picture, because this was like minutes after it happened, and this isn't forced or fake laughter. This is genuine laughter. And I don't know about you, but I am married to a strong woman. My wife's a very passionate woman. Would you raise your hand if you're married to a strong woman? I always love how slow some of the hand. Do you want me to raise my hand right now? This kind of feels like a trap. But how you answer this next question is more important. How many of you love being married to a strong woman? Raise your hand. I love being married. My wife is passionate. She wears a Fitbit. And everything about her, everywhere we're going. We can be going to a store, we can walk into a restaurant, everything's about, we just gotta get these steps in. And I come home from work and I want to stroll. Like, I would like a casual, look, he's with me here on the front. Yes, can we relax? I've had a tough day. Let's just walk through the neighborhood. And Amy's like, no, we gotta get our steps. And she'll ask me while we're walking, hey, are you squeezing your cheeks together? Listen. I grew up in an independent, fundamental, premillennial, King James Version only Baptist church. I'm uptight pretty much all the time. You can pretty much guarantee that. She has this show on TV, favorite show of all time, with Chip and Joanna Gaines called Fixer Upper. And I have said, if I ever meet Chip Gaines, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. I hate that man and everything he stands for. He's ruining our marriage. I'll come home from church and Amy will be standing in the dining room like this. I'm like, what's going on, babe? She goes, I think after dinner, let's see, we should get rid of this wall. Can you get rid of that wall? And I had to go online and find a term to save our marriage. You know what the term is? Load bearing. Every wall in our home is load bearing. You can't touch one or the whole house comes down. And then she's got this other show on Netflix with Marie Kondo called Tidying Up. And I hate that woman as much as I hate Chip Gaines. And here's how I found out about her. I walk into the closet one day and Amy's holding a sweater. I said, what's going on? She goes, I'm asking it the question, do you spark joy? I said, well, what if it doesn't? She says, I'm supposed to say thank you, give it a kiss, put it in the donate discard pile. And then my wife says to me, I want you and I to do this with every article of clothing we got in this closet. Now, I believe I speak on behalf of men worldwide when I tell you, we ain't asking about our jeans, do these spark joy? We're asking, do they fit, do they smell? We pass those two primary tests. We're keeping our jeans. But my wife has two love languages, acts of service and quality time, which means I serve her for long periods of time. That's what those two. And in the middle of those two love languages, she has the love language of decluttering. It's her passion. Her fundamental core value in my wife is, if you haven't used it in a while, you don't need it. And where does she always start with this passion? In the garage. She'll get the garbage can on wheels, she'll flip the lid back, and like a grocery cart around the garage, she's just looking for stuff to throw away. She'll hold up one item at a time and she'll go, hey, are you still using that? I go, babe, that's a hammer. When's the last time I haven't seen you use this thing, right? She'll throw it away. It's her passion. And so my wife has what I call a silent patriotic laugh. When she finds something funny, she places her hand over her heart, she leans forward, and nothing comes out. And I've made it my goal in life for 26 years, and it's gonna continue to be my goal until the Lord returns or calls one of us home. I'm going after that silent patriotic laugh every single day. Am I successful every single day? No. Do I go for it every day? Yes. I brought a picture of my daughter, Corinne, and these are old pictures of my kids, but I just love these pictures. A friend of ours was raising this fawn there in Missouri, which is highly illegal in Missouri. So we didn't raise the fawn, but this is Sugar, and Corinne would want to go over. She's my pioneer girl, everything outdoors and nature, and hobby is sewing and crocheting and crafts, but she'd want to spend time with this little fawn every chance she had. This is my son Carson. He loves deer too. He's pretty passionate about deer. Now, I'm in 60, 70 churches a year, and about once or twice a year, a church will tell me I can't show that picture. And so I asked, can I show this picture here? And everybody was like, yeah, absolutely. It's like half the profile pictures of our congregation. You're gonna be fine. Well, I grew up outside of Chicago, and so I grew up in a fishing family, but a friend of ours took us hunting the weekend of Thanksgiving years ago, put us in a tree stand about a half mile from where he and his grandson were gonna be in, and Carson drops this 11-point buck. And my heart was racing. I've caught big fish. My adrenaline was going crazy. And we go creekside. We're having the time of our life, high-fiving. And after about 5 minutes, Carson goes, Dad, what do we do now? What do we do now? I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. But I think, according to the movie Red Dawn, you got to take a bite out of its heart. That's like the next step we're doing with this whole thing. While I rub blood on your face and we yell Wolverines. That's how this whole thing's going to go down. My passion in life is marriage and family. I've prioritized it in my life. I'm going to encourage you tonight to prioritize it in yours, but not just to like get through it. It's like I hate anniversary cards that are like, yeah, you made it to 57 years. I don't want to just make it. I want to say I enjoy life together, man. We have a blast together. And I love the book of Ecclesiastes. It's very dark, pessimistic, very much fits my personality. It's a great winter read, Idaho. If you're looking for a winter devotional, go with Ecclesiastes. Chapter 1, life is hard. Chapter 12, then you die. These are the bookends of Ecclesiastes. And in the middle of life is hard and then you die, we get Ecclesiastes 9:9, which reads, endure life with your wife all your miserable days. Now, when I'm in churches and Bibles are closed and it's not on the screen and in a preacher voice, I'll go, endure life with your wife all your miserable days. All throughout congregations, I'll hear, It's good. It's good. And I get to be the one that says, that's not what it says. It says, enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun. All your meaningless days, for this is your lot in life and in your toilsome labor. The word toilsome there in that verse means grueling. Life under the sun, or just upon this earth, can be challenging and it can be difficult. But here's what we must understand as we start tonight. God did not give you your spouse to be the toilsome labor under the sun. He didn't give you your spouse to be the grind of life. He gave you your spouse to go through the grind with. As I work with couples in counseling and coaching, I have to remind them all the time, your marriage has an enemy. Make no mistake. It's just not your spouse. Your spouse is your companion through the grind. If you want to experience high levels of marital satisfaction, never treat your spouse like the source of life. Never treat your spouse like the enemy. Always look to your spouse as the companion. The companion through the grind of life. And you know what this text is teaching us? Marital satisfaction is a choice. It's a decision that you make. It's something you go after. You're never going to stumble into it. You're never going to find it. You're not just going to be sitting around and drift into it. It doesn't happen that way. You have to go after it. You have to make the choice. Who here met online? Let me see the hands of all those who met online. All right, great way to meet people. I always love it because they're like, oh, it's legal. I'm going to go ahead and raise my hand. Online is a great way to meet someone. But I always love sharing this directly with someone who met online because I always get this. A good match is a good start, but it's not a guarantee of a thriving marriage. Just because you're like, man, this is starting off so well. No, you have to continue to choose it. So I always tell couples, it's what you do after you meet that matters more than how you met. And so I tell the couples in our church all the time, I don't care if you met on eHarmony, Match.com, FarmersOnly.com, Ancestry.com. I don't care how you meet. It's what you do after you meet, and stop looking for greener grass. Where there's greener grass, there is a septic leak. You need to stay home and water your own lawn. For a good time, call home. Here's what we know about marital satisfaction. It's based on factors and skills that couples can do something about in any season or stage of life. You know, when I meet with couples, they always want me to help them out of the season or the stage that they're in. So let me tell you, if you're in here tonight with a 3, a 5, and a 7-year-old, you're going home to a 3, a 5, and a 7-year-old. Can't do much about that. Whether you've been married 6 weeks or 57 years, okay? These factors and skills, we're going to look at a few of them tonight, work. They work to experience high levels of marital satisfaction in the toilsome labor under the sun. We just came through a difficult season. I couldn't do much about getting everybody out of the pandemic, but I could do my part. And I just do this one little bit. It's going to be real quick and painless for those of you like, don't you dare do anything political. Well, here we go. I got in so much trouble during the pandemic. I was one of these pastors. I'm still trying to figure out what happened over the last 2 years, but I've never been in more trouble for things I've never said. People would come into church on Sunday and just be like, and we had people on both sides. We had the people over here that said they had COVID-19 in 2012. You can only have it once, you'll never have it again. We had people over here that were driving alone in cars wearing masks. You know who I'm talking about. I was trying to pastor both people is what I was trying to do, trying to make Jesus the center of it all. But I got in trouble for going with the flow, and I did. They told us to shut down, we shut down. They said wear a mask, I wore a mask. They said stay 6 feet apart, stayed 6 feet apart. They said do this, I did it all the way. But I drew my line in January of 21. I was done. I was absolutely worn out. I was in the family room. I'll never forget the moment I decided this. Amy was in the kitchen, and I was reading the Washington Post. You can fact check me on this. Washington Post, January 21. I'm reading, and I go, oh, no. Amy goes, what? I said, I'm out. I'm done. She goes, you're done with what? I'm not doing anything more, especially if this is what's next. She goes, what? I go, you're never going to believe what's next. She goes, what? I go, the Washington Post is saying that research now shows the anal swab is more effective than the nasal swab in detecting COVID. She said, what? I said, they're going to start anal swabbing American citizens is what they're going to do. I'm out. I'm reading. It doesn't say how far they're going in with this swab. We know the last one tickled your brain. I don't know what we're going to be tickling with this one. Ain't going to be me. I ain't doing it. Certainly they haven't thought about drive-thrus on this. We're not doing this in a drive-thru. You laugh, but I had to go on a trip and get a test 2 weeks later. I pulled into our hospital there in Branson, Missouri. There's an orange cone white sign that says COVID testing in the rear. I'm like, here we go. It's made its way to Branson. Now, some of you aren't laughing. I'm going to stop. I got about 3 more, but I'm done. Because there are people in here not laughing right now. And let me tell you, if you're not laughing at any of these jokes, trust me, you're going to pass the anal test with flying colors. And we're going to be proud of you. You'll probably be the first one in line waiting for the swab, but not me. That's all I'm telling you. All that to say, I remember sitting in the garage. You know, I don't know if you remember the middle of March, but everything just completely stopped. And our rhythms and our pace as a couple, everything we were going along good in our marriage just stopped. And Amy and I spent every morning in our garage on lawn chairs looking out and listening to our 11 chickens lay their eggs. I don't know if you've ever heard a chicken lay an egg, but it's painful. We would sit there. It took 4 hours for 11 chickens to lay these eggs for us every day. And we would just sit there listening to, and I'll never forget Amy looking over to me 2 weeks later, or 2 weeks into the pandemic, and she said, we're spending more time together than we've ever spent. Would you call it quality time? And I realized that was a factor and a skill in our marriage. We had quality time down. The daily delay, the weekly withdrawal, that's our date night, the annual abandon, the getting out of town, all of that we were told, no. Whatever trip you had planned in April, cancel it. Whatever restaurant you were planning on going to for date night, nope. You're going to the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. That's what you're going to do. So everything changed. And I fell out. I teach this stuff all the time, and I'm like, okay, we just can't enjoy life right now. We have fallen for something in this country, what Dr. Robert Holden from the UK calls destination addiction. Destination addiction says we can't enjoy this season or stage, but it awaits us in the next one. And I think as Americans, we've been conditioned to always be looking for joy in the next season or stage rather than trying to go after it in this one. Right? We do it as parents. If we could just get these kids to sleep through the night, then we're going to enjoy life. If we can just get these kids off to school. Once we get them off to school, we'll have some more time. Once we get these kids driving, once these kids are out of the house, we're always once. And the factors and skills that we're talking about tonight, here's what we know too. What was natural early on must become intentional later on. So 6 weeks, a lot of what we're talking about tonight, this is like breathing for you. No one has to look at a couple married 6 weeks and go, hey, are you guys spending enough time together? No one has to look at a couple married 6 weeks and go, are you guys touching enough? Do you touch enough? But I can go to the couples married 20, 30 years, and asked you, how's physical touch going in your marriage? How's non-sexual touching going? Guys, I hate to tell you this, but research tells us your wife needs 12 non-sexual touches a day, and it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Every time I mention that, I have to get that out quick because guys start going like this to their wives sitting next to them. You know what I love about the factors and skills that we're talking about? If you'll be intentional with them, they can feel natural again. They can feel natural again. 26 years of marriage, quality time, non-sexual touching. Do you remember when you wanted your parents to think highly of your spouse? So before, as you started dating, you just talked up your spouse to people, every person you met? Are you still complimenting one another in public? Are we intentional with that? I even go back to this. How about just thinking about each other? Are you thinking about, do you remember when you were dating? You may still be doing this at 6 weeks, but do you remember when you were dating and you would fight with each other over who was going to hang up the phone first? You remember that? And you put that like angry baby voice into it? No. I'm not hanging up the phone. You better hang up the phone. I'm not hanging. You hang up this phone right now. And now you're on the phone doing what? Come on. It's natural early on, but you have to be intentional with it later on. When you read Genesis 2:24, it says this. And a lot of times people see Genesis 2:24 as just a marriage verse, but we have to see the factor of the kid-centered home first, because the first half of the verse is a parenting verse. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother. You have to leave home physically, relationally, emotionally, financially, before you can be united to one another, becoming one flesh. And we've been teaching this verse to our children since they were small. How many of you still got kids at home? Let me just see the hands all over the room. Okay, it is time to eradicate the kid-centered home. And some people just heard me say eradicate kids from the home. I said eradicate the kid-centered home and prioritize your marriage. Start teaching your kids this verse at an early age. And here's how we taught our kids Genesis 2:24. You will not be with mom and dad forever, so plan accordingly. You could ask my 5-year-old when he's a senior in high school now, but when he was 5, he would say that back to you. I will not be with mom and dad forever, so plan accordingly. That's right. We've told our kids since they were very small. Genesis 2:24. We love you. You're a welcomed addition to this home, but you're not the center of it. We love you. You're a welcomed addition to this home. You're not the center of it. And your mom and I, we got big plans after you leave. Carson would go, well, what are you going to do? Well, first of all, we're going to Disney World. That's how we're going to kick the whole thing off. But I think this is an important question for us to ask and regularly ask ourselves. Do I have a marriage worth repeating? This enjoying life together, I want my kids to see me going after Amy's silent, patriotic laugh. I want them to see mom and dad's marriage and go, I want that. My son and I, we love watching YouTube clips. It's his love language, I'm convinced. We shared, and today, getting here to Boise, just back and forth with reels and videos. But when he was 5, I showed him one of our favorite, to this day, it's the German Coast Guard. If you get time tonight, go to youtube.com, type in German Coast Guard. It's a 30-second clip. My son, the first time he heard it, he fell over in laughter. And I'll do it for you real quick. Guys being trained day 1 on the German Coast Guard, and a mayday comes in. Mayday, mayday, we are sinking, we are sinking. Hello? This is the German Coast Guard. Mayday, mayday, we are sinking, we are sinking. What are you sinking about? Carson fell over in laughter, thought it was the funniest thing he's ever heard. And a few weeks later, we were driving down the road, and I start singing a hymn from my childhood that goes like this. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore. And from the back seat, I heard, and what were you sinking about? And I looked at my wife, and I said, they see everything, they hear everything, they forget nothing, and then they repeat. They see, hear. Look at all the grandparents in the room going. They see, they hear, remember, and repeat. And let me tell you, mom and dad, don't overlook your marriage as one of your greatest parenting tools. They have a front row seat to your marriage and enjoying life together. When my daughter was 5, she was taking over the home. It was wearing me out. I finally put her on the breakfast bar. I put my hand on her heart, and I said, Corinne May, there's one queen in this house, and you ain't her. She looked at me with those eyes that said, we'll see. She told my wife the next day, there's room enough in this house for 2 queens. I put her back on the breakfast bar. I put my hand on her heart, and I said, Corinne May, you'll never be my queen, but you're my princess. And part of my parenting plan, Corinne, is to show you every day between now and then, that day I stand at the back of a church with you looking down the aisle at some pervert, I said, I'm not walking you down the aisle until I know he loves you as much as me, because I want to show you in my marriage to your mother what you should be looking for. And y'all, on May 31st this year, I walked my princess down the aisle in what she wanted was she wanted a simple backyard garden wedding. And I'd like to explain to you how much a simple backyard garden wedding costs. There's a reason you rent wedding venues. You don't build them in your backyard. But I walked her down the aisle, and I love the word picture we get in Genesis 2:20 through 22, right? God takes the rib from Adam, and he creates Eve and then brings her to Adam. We have the first wedding, and it's this beautiful picture. Martin Luther says God could have taken a bone from Adam's head, implying that women would rule over men. Could have taken a bone from Adam's foot, implying that men would rule over women. But instead, and I love this Ecclesiastes 9 picture again, comes back to me in this text. He took a bone from Adam's side. Yes, it implies equality and mutual respect, but it's this beautiful word picture of a husband and wife walking side by side through the garden together. That's what I love about that 25th wedding anniversary picture. That's Amy and I walking through Stockstill Park together, walking side by side. And when you get to Genesis 2:24, it really brings that verse to life when you read it in context, because when I'm walking down the aisle with Corinne, I'm giving a visual to, this is what I did for her whole life. I was side by side. She's my daughter. I'm her daddy. But who gives this woman to be married to this man? And I said, her mother and I. And you know what I do right there? And this is why I'm telling couples today, stop rushing the wedding. The wedding's so fast. Like, I meet with couples, how long do you want this wedding to be? Can we get it done in like 12 to 15 minutes? Okay, let's settle down, because this picture right here, I walk back. I step away from the side of Corinne, and the pervert steps to her side. No, I can't tell that story anymore, y'all, because the pervert's got a name. But that's exactly what Genesis 2:24 is on display. I step away from the side of my daughter. Caden's parents step away from his side. He is now side by side with my daughter through the grind. Who here has small children at home? How old are your kids? 3 and almost 6. Yes. Okay, couple married 57 years. How many kids y'all got? 2. Do you know that couple married 57 years? Will you do me a huge favor? Tonight, when we're done, would you stick around just back there a little bit and let this couple meet you? And the reason I want them to meet you is because, like, you need an older couple in your life, because you got antibacterial product hanging all over your purse. All right? She just let her kids pick up cigarette butts and chew on them. And her kids are fine. And you need to go talk to him, because he's let his kids sleep in the back window of the car on long trips. You now strap them in like you're launching them to outer space. They used to put 3 kids in one playpen with only 1 toy. Where we got the idea for cage fighting. You can look that one up. Watch this. How many of you remember drinking out of garden hoses? Yeah, we all survived. Raise your hand if you've ever been shot by a BB gun. Oh, I'm in Idaho now. Listen. You want to lower the crime rate in this country, you let your kids start shooting each other with BB guns right now. I'm convinced of it. Remember when my dad would stand in the kitchen, watch my brother and I shoot each other with BB guns and pellet guns, no protective eyewear. And then he'd come out and help us build a ramp to jump our bikes over the... That's a good dad. We need those dads back. How many of you remember when your dad... How many of you remember when your dad couldn't figure out which of your siblings was at fault, so he just spanked all of you? Anybody remember that? How many remember when your dad sent you upstairs to wait for your spanking? That was worse than the spanking. How many remember when your dad sent you upstairs to wait for your spanking, then he forgot that he sent you upstairs to wait for your spanking? You and your brother would sit there, do we remind him what we're doing up here? We've been up here for an hour. As soon as you had that thought, you heard the feet coming up the steps, you heard the belt hitting every loop. My brother's stubborn. He'd sit on his side of the bed and be like, oh, Dad ain't gonna break me. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm screaming on the backswing. I don't want! My brother and I, my dad's 75 now, great dad. He taught my brother and I that the bell on the ice cream truck meant they were out of ice cream. See, that's a good dad. And I want you to meet that couple. I just described their entire parenting style right back there. Actually, I'm going to give you some. I created these cards. A lot of what we're talking about tonight, scripture memorization has always been huge for our family. The 3-year-old, a boy or a girl? Boy. Is he going to be up when you get home tonight? Okay. Did you say unfortunately? You can't say that. So we went through all the children's Bibles. We did the children's Bibles. We loved them, but it's like I told Amy, there's so much more. We got to give our kids more. So we created A to Z devotions for the kids. And if a 3-year-old can memorize 26 passages of scripture, if every night you'll start at A and work up to the next letter. Repetition's the key to learning. And so I don't walk around with young adults and flashcards anymore. But as a family, we still got all 26 passages memorized. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider his ways and be wise. And hard work, that's the main point. Each one has a talk time and some questions. Proverbs 6:6. The B, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul, healthy to the body. We would talk about honor, speaking words of value over one another. The camel, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. I love how scripture uses word pictures because that's how we learn and that's how we remember. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats its folly. The eagle is unlimited power from Isaiah. The fox is from Song of Solomon. But tonight, and tonight only, I'm going to let you start with the V. So long as tomorrow night you go back to A and work up to the next letter each night and watch where you're at in a couple of months. The V is my favorite one. Tuck him in, get him all comfortable, pull this card out, and right as he's drifting off to sleep, read for him Proverbs 30:17. The eye that mocks a father, that scorns an aged mother, will be pecked out by the ravens of the valley and will be eaten by vultures. Night, night, buddy, okay? You sleep good? You gonna sleep good tonight for mommy, daddy? Okay. Having your eyes pecked out by ravens and eaten by vultures is a word picture for death. Not listening to your parents, making fun of your dad, and treating your mom as your servant will cause you much pain as an adult. The Bible's very clear that we're supposed to honor our parents even after we leave home. It's the first commandment with a promise. God gives us parents to prepare us for life in the world. When you listen to their instruction, it helps you throughout your entire life. Thank you for letting me pick on you. I'm going to give you these cards right there, my brother. And take a long road trip. So 2 weeks before the global pandemic, I released a book called A Love That Laughs, all about finding your shared sense of humor in marriage, enjoying life together. I love the subtitle, Lighten Up, Cut Loose, and Enjoy Life Together. And I'm going to encourage you, if you want to release a book on laughter, do it 2 weeks before a global pandemic. I've sold like 43 copies of this thing. But it's Proverbs 17:22, and I've spent a lot of time the last couple of years going around the country meeting with couples that have crushed spirits. Crushed spirit, dried up bones. But what we've been taking tonight is a cheerful medicine. And I understand the limitations of laughter, but I'm telling you, I think our country needs to find its sense of humor again. I think our churches need to find our senses of humor again. I think couples need to lighten up and find ways to enjoy one another, get back to the factors and skills that were natural early on to be intentional with later on. If you were to sum this whole book up in one statement, it would be this right here. Couples who use laughter to manage stress and work through difficult conversations not only report higher levels of marital satisfaction, but they stay together longer. Now let me say to the men in here, if you're going to use laughter to work through difficult conversations, timing is everything. You're like, well, how will I know? Oh, you'll know. Okay? She'll let you know. And she'll say, too soon. But chapter 2 is 38 benefits of laughter for your marriage. I wish I could share them all with you tonight, but I'm only going to give you 7 of them real quick. 7 benefits of laughter for your marriage. The first one is this. It opens us up for truth. That's why I love to use humor when I teach, because I believe if I can get your mouth open and you're laughing, I can cram truth down your throat. It helps us absorb truth. It helps us cope, number 2. 19th century preacher Henry Ward Beecher said, a person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without springs, jolted by every pebble on the road. Good humor makes all things tolerable. A factor and skill we need during difficult times. The third one, hearty laughter burns calories. According to Vanderbilt University, you can burn up to 40 calories with 10 to 15 minutes of hearty laughter. You probably burned over 100 calories already tonight. Skip your workout tomorrow because we ain't done. Laughter reduces stress and tension. I do an event around the country called Date Night Comedy. And the 3 things I love to hear after a comedy show is this. Haven't laughed that hard in a long time. My face hurts and my side hurts. I was in Rock Valley, Iowa in February. A 65-year-old lady came up to me and she said, Pastor, what were those 3 things people say? Haven't laughed that hard in a long time. My face hurts and my side hurts. She goes, you can add a 4th. I said, what's that? She goes, I think I peed a little. Number 5, humor makes you more attractive. I tell the young guys in our church all the time, you don't need the body of The Rock, the face of Brad Pitt, or the ego of Tony Stark to get a girl. You just need a few jokes. You need a paycheck and a few jokes, and you got those 2 things, and you can get the girl. Humor makes you more relatable. Have you ever walked into a room when people are laughing? You don't know what was said, what was done, but you find yourself moving toward it. Not only do you find yourself moving toward it, you find yourself laughing. Why? Because laughter, like a yawn, is contagious. We all enjoy being around someone who can say something stupid, do something dumb, and just shake their head and go, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. And this is one of my favorite ones. Humor makes shopping enjoyable. I hate shopping with every ounce of my being. I hate grocery shopping. Amy sends me into the store with these vague lists, and I get over to, she sends me in for canned tomatoes. Okay, I'm gonna go over to the aisle, canned tomatoes. I'm that guy you always see in the aisle on his phone going, I'm right here, yeah? Nope, I need specific words. I need exact words to find. Canned tomatoes, not enough. There's diced, there's peeled, there's crushed. And she sent me in some time ago for one item. I was coming home from church. She goes, hey, would you get me prepared mustard on your way home? I've never heard of prepared mustard in my entire life. I go over to our mustard section. I stand in front of it. I do the thing, you've done it. You start at the top, and I work my way down the whole thing. Okay, we don't have prepared. Let's start again. I missed it. Hot and spicy, Dijon, yellow. Okay, all right, I'm not gonna, an 80-plus-year-old lady walks down the aisle. And I'm like, before I call him, I'm like, ma'am, I'm so sorry to bug you. Could you help me find, my wife sent me in here to find prepared mustard. This woman didn't say one word to me. She walks over to the mustard section, and she looks at it like this. She looks back at me once. She goes back like this. And this is all she did. How many of you just learned what prepared mustard is for the first time in your life? All right, a lot of people. I'm telling you, here's a secret. You want the skill? If the factor is humor, you want the skill? I'm going to say this especially to the husband. Stop trying to be funny and just start looking for it. I'm telling you, it's everywhere. You're going to see it. I hope tomorrow, maybe even tonight on the way home, you start seeing it and you start calling it out. We were at the grocery store some time ago, and Amy sent me. She goes, oh, I forgot. Run over and grab for me. And on my way over, I passed this item. It made me laugh out loud. It was worth me grabbing, taking back to Amy to see if I could get the silent patriotic laugh. I didn't get the silent patriotic laugh. I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to show you what I showed her to see how you respond. Now, some of you aren't laughing, and that's because you were raised on new math. But when I grew up, the math teacher said, show your work. Somebody complained, this is fantastic, and Coke had to use a third of the box to show their, why am I paying so much for this Coke? I'm mad, well, it's a 15-pack, I don't care. Okay, well, it's 3 more cans than a 12-pack. If you drive by this sign, don't just point it out, read it out loud. At Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. Do you know what hell is? Come hear our preacher. My friend John Branyan's a comedian in Indianapolis, and he called this out the first time to me. And he said he does a whole bit on this. If you get home tonight, check out his bit on Flippin, Arkansas. It's a town in Arkansas called Flippin, Arkansas. It's less than an hour from Branson, Missouri. We were together doing a show one night, and he said, Ted, you live about an hour from Flippin. And he goes, have you been there? I go, yeah. He goes, did you laugh the entire time driving through Flippin, Arkansas? I said, I guess I didn't. So Amy and I took a field trip, okay, after he called it out. First sign we see. You can't invite your lost friends to the Flippin' Church of God. You imagine something going wrong on Sunday morning, 911, what's your emergency? Yeah, I'm at the Flippin' Church of God. Somebody get me the Flippin' cops. You pull into Flippin, Arkansas, the police cars say Flippin' Police. Then you drive by Flippin' High School. Their mascot's the Bulldogs. Total miss, should have been the Birds. You shouldn't laugh at that one. That was more of a club joke, I'm gonna admit right there. I hope you start to find the funny and call it out. Look for it and call it out. It's one of my favorite things to ask people. It's how I break the ice with strangers. Have you seen anything funny lately? I love asking people in their jobs, like whether it be a funeral home director, a first responder, a doctor, a teacher, a flight attendant. Hey, have you seen anything funny lately? And I get some of the best of material out of that question. I was sitting down, I meet once a month with a retired missionary in our church. Her name's Pat Kershaw. She's 88 years old. She's been at our church for 20 years. Her passion in life, she worked for International Students Incorporated. Her passion in life is sharing the gospel with international students while they're here at university, disciple them, and then send them back to be leaders in their home nation. It's her passion in life, and we meet once a month at Panera Bread. She sat down a couple years ago, and I said, Pat, have you seen anything funny lately? She's 88, at the time probably 86. She goes, I saw it just yesterday while getting my mammogram up in Springfield. I said, oh, well, every pastor needs a good mammogram. I go, what you got for me, Pat? She goes, well, you know, it was at Mercy Hospital, and the nuns, it's a Catholic hospital, and the nuns, they got verses all up and down the hallway at Mercy Hospital. Ted, what verse you think they got hanging on the mammogram machine at Mercy Hospital? I said, I have absolutely no idea. She said, 2 Corinthians 4:8, for we are hard pressed on every side. It's everywhere. Now, on a night like this, and as we close, I want to share just a few more thoughts with you. For the couple who would say, I'm not enjoying life right now. We haven't enjoyed life together for a while. I don't remember being in a room with laughter like this in a while. And here's the bottom line. Your marriage is doing one of two things. You're either enjoying life together, deciding, choosing, going after that, or you're not, and we call that drift. You're either choosing or you're drifting. No one wakes up and says, today we will drift in our marriage. No. It's when you stop being intentional. So I just want to give some encouragement to those of you who would say, we are in drift as a couple. I want to give you some of the symptoms of drift and then the way out. And here's the first one. When your marriage drifts, you blame your spouse. You blame your spouse. And listen, it's the ultimate level of stuckness in marriage. When you see your spouse as the source of all your problems, you don't even know you're doing this. You're automatically setting your spouse up to be the solution. When your spouse is the source and the solution, you're stuck. And you are waiting for them to change, but there's a better way, and here it is. Fire your spouse as the source of your life. Jesus is your source. Satan is your enemy. Your spouse is your companion through the grind. If you want to experience high levels of marital satisfaction, stop treating your spouse like the source and the enemy. See your spouse as the companion. So I always love to do this right now. Let's fire your spouse as the source of life. Everybody raise your right hand. Let's just see it across here. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I would expect that from Washington State, but not you, Idaho. Do hereby resign as general manager of the universe and my spouse. Now take this finger for the very last time and point to your spouse and say, you're fired. You'll no longer suck the life out of me. No, I'm teaching now. That guy always got to make clear. That lady back there, you will no longer suck the life out of me. You are not my source. You are not the enemy. You know what you just did right there? You freed yourself up. I'm going to spend the most time on this one before I get into the other four quickly. You just freed yourself up to give, pour, serve your spouse with zero expectations of anything coming back to you. The most miserable marriage on the planet is a husband and wife connected to each other as the source of life. You want to know what the best marriage on the planet is? A husband and wife firing each other as the source, both of them plugging into the true and only source, and then spending their days giving each other the overflow. That's a great marriage. I have a face that screams retail. I can't fully explain it, but I'm asked in stores and restaurants all the time, excuse me, do you work here? I'm so tired of being asked that question. I don't fight it anymore. I respond with, how may I help you? Every time. How may I help you? We were years ago at one of our favorite sandwich shops in Branson called Sugar Leaf, and our whole family was at a high top table eating, and I got up to use the restroom, and I saw this couple over here, mid-70s, completely and totally ticked off. Like I just see they were really frustrated, really mad. And I looked at my watch and said, oh, we got a couple. So I walk over to him, and I simply asked, hey, how was everything? And he says, I got to be honest with you, we're pretty frustrated. I said, oh, I hate to hear that. I said, what seems to be the problem? He said, your sign outside said bratwurst, and we stood in line for 20 minutes waiting for bratwurst, and we got to the front, and you're out of bratwurst. Now, I'm only 48, but I can't wait until the day in my life when the biggest issue of my day, I mean the thing that really ticks me off, is a store promising bratwurst and then being out of bratwurst. But I could just see the guy's all mad. I go, sir, what can we do to make this right? Starts changing his attitude. I said, sir, what if I get you a piece of pie? And he becomes a new person. So I go, I stand in line, I buy him a piece of pie. I bring it, I set it down in front of him. He starts asking me questions about the restaurant. And I'm like, hey, whoa. I don't work here. That's my family over there. My entire family deadpan from across the restaurant goes. And I go to the bathroom and I come back. I hit the table. I go, did you guys see that? I go, I'm so fired up. Why is that like a drug coursing through my vein? I don't want anything from that couple. Isn't this what Jesus said when he said the Son of Man came to serve, not be served? You want to find joy in your relation, not just your marriage. You want to find joy as a member of this church? Show up, serve, and give, and pour yourself here with nothing, no expectations. I think that's where it all goes wrong in church work, right? Whenever someone comes up to me wanting to share something with me, if they ever lead out with, I just want you to know that I tithe here. Ooh, yeah. Nothing good's going to come after that statement right there. Because you just set up expectation. Like you think it entitles you to something. We do it in our marriage all the time. If you don't catch it at the blame game, if you don't fire each other as a source, you'll end up to the second symptom, and that is you'll close your heart. I met a lady on the East Coast years ago. She came up to the book table afterwards. She was shaking. She was so mad. I did a session on From Anger to Intimacy. She walked up to the book table and she goes, Pastor! I was like, what? She goes, my husband left me. Do you know why he left me? I'm getting a little picture of it. I'm sure it's not the whole thing. She said, my husband left me because he couldn't handle being married to a successful woman. I was like, okay, oh boy, here we go. The issue is rarely ever the issue. And I've heard all the issues, sex, money, in-laws, parenting, jobs, careers. Rarely have I heard success as a cause. I said, ma'am, can I pastor you for 5 minutes? I took her silence as consent. I said, I noticed it from across the room. She goes, what's that? I said, the ginormous chip on your shoulder. I said, it's huge. I don't know who put it there. I don't know how long it's been there, but I got great news for you. She goes, what's that? I go, you are 100% responsible for it. Now, I got to be careful, because you know what some people just heard me say? She is 100% to blame for it. I didn't say that. I said, her ex-husband's gone. It's been gone for years. She gets to choose what she's going to do. And if she's going to live with that closed heart, she had a closed heart. And I said, can I tell you 2 things about anger? My mentor, Dr. Gary Smalley, taught me. Number 1, unresolved anger is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to get sick. And I said, ma'am, you're drinking it by the gallons. I said, the second thing you need to know is unresolved anger. You never bury it dead. You always bury it alive. it'll resurface in another relationship at work, relationship with your son who is standing next to her. You enter into a new marriage, it could resurface there. I said, you have to turn to the true and only source. Many of us have a problem forgiving a spouse, but it's not a spouse problem, it's a source problem. You have been forgiven by God through Christ Jesus. That's what I love about the parable of the unmerciful servant, right? You've been forgiven a multi-million-dollar debt, and you go out and find someone who owes you a few bucks. Beat them and throw them in prison. Know who your source is, your source of life and your source of forgiveness. Remember how much you've been forgiven and offer that to your spouse. If you don't catch it here, it moves to the third symptom, which is you isolate from others. And I see this all the time with couples, and they fall for this lie. No one understands what I'm going through. It's why I love to connect younger couples with senior couples. I've made the decision in our church, and for Amy and I never want to be the oldest person in small group. What do we call them here, Keith? Small groups, community groups? I never want to be the oldest person. Why? Because I want someone in there who's experienced seasons and stages of life that I haven't been to yet. And here's what's great about group. If you're not in a group, if you're not plugged into biblical community and you think your marriage is a mess, go get around some others, because I've done it I don't know how many times. I think, oh, Amy and I've got to work on some things. We go to small group, we come out, we get in the car afterwards, I fall over the steering wheel, I'm like, wow. At least we're not as jacked up as those other couples in there. That's called biblical community, man. You got to get in it. And here's what we say at our church. This works in Branson, Missouri. Maybe we should find a Boise, Idaho word picture. But here's what we say in country music live, country music capital of the world. Every marriage is a duet in need of great backup singers. That's why I'm excited to be here tonight. And thank you for having me. It's been a great time. I love that this church wants to be a great backup singer to your duet. And that's part of the issue right now. Some of you have surrounded your marriage with bad backup singers. And tonight, I would encourage you, whatever jaded coworker you've been turning to or jaded family member, okay, maybe as a couple tonight or starting with you, you decide that is someone we're going to turn down or mute altogether. They will no longer be an influence in our marriage. And maybe decide as a couple, who will that be? We say at our church, everybody falls in love with the front end of the puppy. But every puppy has a back end. And every marriage in here has a back end story. You're gonna see a video in a moment for Reengage. John McGee, my friends at Watermark, I'm glad this church has been running Reengage for about 5 years now. If you're like, where do I even start? How do I even begin to plug in? Where can I find this biblical community? They're gonna give you a very practical first step that you can take to surround yourself with healthy, keyword healthy, backup singers. And let me tell you, when you get into that discussion, you can turn them way up. Because we want you to have what the daughters of Jerusalem were for Solomon and the Shulamite woman. We read, the first time we read them is in the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 4, where it says, we rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. We want that for every couple in here tonight. We want people rejoicing in your marriage, praising your love, delighting in you, and that's what good backup singers do. But if you stick with the bad backup singers, it's going to take you to this fourth symptom, which is doubt. A bad backup singer will help you doubt. And they'll say things like, are you sure? I just want you to be happy. You've tried everything. No one should have to put up with this. And they just like take you down the road, but you want the backup singers. That are gonna remind you that you stood before God and gathered witnesses and said, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. We used to say at our church, till death do us part, but now we say until the Lord returns or calls one of us home. You want to eradicate doubt with the good backup singers, because if you don't, it takes you to the fifth symptom, and simply this: you begin to explore other options. That's the end stage of drift. What would single life look like again? Or maybe I should check on him or her, someone I was with years ago, just to see how they're doing. Maybe an old boyfriend, old girlfriend. And I want to give you, Dr. Scott Stanley at the University of Denver has the best definition of commitment that I know, and it's simply this: making the choice to give up all other choices. Making that choice tonight. And I'll end with this couple right here, Lloyd and Jean. I met them in Iowa City, Iowa. at 69 years of marriage. I followed them. I called back to the church every year till they hit their 73rd wedding anniversary. But I love this picture because I didn't ask them to post for this. I was standing at the book table. And I hope you stop by the book table. 57 years, 6 weeks, claim your free books. But man, they shuffled over to me. And he put his finger in my chest and he said, "Young man, don't quit. Keep doing this. You keep blessing marriages. I wish we would have had something like this when we were first married." I'm like, "You were in Europe in World War II. You didn't have time for a marriage conference." They spoke this massive blessing over me in love. It's 69 years of marriage. And I'll never get this picture out of my mind. At the end, Jean reached in her purse. She grabbed 2 identical collapsible canes, and she handed one to Lloyd. And both of them, like Indiana Jones, went And I called my wife, and I said, "We need 2 canes and 2 of those rockers from Cracker Barrel. Because we're in this until the Lord returns or calls one of us home." And that is my prayer for you and for your marriage. Surround yourself with good backup singers, and there are voices in this church that you need to lean into. If you'd love to connect with me more, my website you can check out is helpingcoupleswin.com. You can take a shot at that. But my encouragement to you is, in a moment, they're going to give you practical ways to sign up for Reengage. I'm a wholehearted endorser of that ministry because I have seen miracle after miracle take place as God uses. It's curriculum, yes, but I'm telling you, it's the format and the biblical community surrounding your marriage that I know so many are missing. So check out this video.